Hi, my name's Tonya, and I'm 46 years old. I live with sickle cell type SC.
So, what is the hardest thing about having sickle cell disease?
Um, just living with the everyday pain, and just missing out on stuff. Because with sickle cell things, it's so unexpected. You can, I say, be having the time of your life, living your best life, and then next thing you know, your world come crashing down.
Yes.
So it's the unexpectedness out of the disease.
Yes.
Of the complications, the pain, like I said, of course, but there's more to it. Like it affects, your organs, and you have to be more careful, take more precautions than other people would. Like I said, you miss out on a lot. Yeah, you miss out. So due to taking such precautions, because certain things that you do, you have to be careful what you do, because you'll end up in the hospital.
Okay, and so what are some things, Tonya, that you do to help you cope with sickle cell disease?
Okay, so daily I take my medications, of course, as prescribed, but it's the things that I eat, because I changed my diet. It took a long while. It took like a little bit more than 3 years for me to get used to it. But once I changed my diet, I eat a lot more fruits, berries. Wow. I eat a lot more vegetables.
So do you feel like when you changed your diet, that was able to help you with your sickle cell?
It started, yes.
Okay.
Because I'm a busybody. I like to get out. And when I do, I'm always walking. I'm always doing something, keeping my blood going and just keeping, myself going. Yes. Staying busy, staying active. And I noticed a change, because when I was eating heavier foods, I moved slower and I felt more sluggish, felt more tired. But when I started eating lighter, started eating the fruits, started eating the salads, started eating more of the vegetables, stopped drinking the drinks and started drinking more water and juice instead of all, I was able to breathe better.
Wow.
Get to where I was going quicker. I felt lighter. So, it has its benefits, and you have less pain crisis.
Wow. That is good, yeah, because we talk about all types of different tips and tricks to decrease crises on my channel, but I've never heard someone talk about having a diet. That's really good to know. So, you mentioned that you went to Grady Memorial's Hospital recently for acute care.
Yes.
What were you in there for, and can you describe your experience?
Okay, so I was having a pain crisis, and this particular one, I was having some chest discomfort. So I went in, and the sickle cell acute care unit was crowded. They couldn't see anyone, so I ended up being treated in the ER. The ER nurse that was assigned to me was a rather rude woman that day. Let me put it to you like this. I understand they're busy and they have other patients, but I'm a patient as well. And I can just be but so understanding. And, with my medications, the way my regimen is every 3 hours. So when I talk to the nurse, I'm saying, "Excuse me, nurse," because her name escaped me.
Yes.
So I'm like, "Excuse me, nurse, I'm not loud. I'm not belligerent. You might have a little chaos around you because someone else is being loud, and this particular day someone else was." But when I say, "Excuse me, nurse," because it was close time for my medication, she knew it. She said, "Okay, I'm bringing it." Okay. So I'm waiting. 20 minutes later, I had to remind her. I'm like, "Excuse me, nurse, I still haven't received my medication." I was like, "Can you?" But by this time, I started back hurting 45 minutes before it was time for my second dose. But either way, 47 minutes passed by. That woman did not give me my medication, because when I saw her that last time, I'm like, "Nurse, please." She said, she just turned around and snapped at me. She said, "I got to stop the juice. I got to give another patient their medication before you." I just looked at her. I'm like, "Excuse me?" I don't know where the attitude come from, but I asked for a charge nurse, and they're supposed to give you one. I never got one. And I asked for a charge nurse 3 different times. No one ever got one, but I saw another nurse. And I asked her, because she had been working around in the area too. And I said, "Please, could you just give me my second dose?" And which she did. She stopped what she was doing went and looked me up in the system and did what it was and gave my second dose. So at this time, that other nurse who was originally assigned to me, she was just going back and forth doing what she was doing on purpose, because I saw her. She went past me 5 additional times before, they go talking about they were getting ready to change shift. So I said, yeah, she did that on purpose. I never saw a charge nurse to report this woman. When it came time for me, I didn't even stay long enough for a third dose.
Oh, man.
I just told them after my second dose, about 35 minutes after, I just told them I felt better, so they can discharge me so I can go home.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned this problem, because it seems like a lot of people with sickle cell go through this. I feel like when you're a kid, you get a lot more care and people care for you.
And I'm glad you said that.
But then when you become an adult, it's like, well, you're a grown person, so you gotta take care of yourself. Yeah. So as you said you're 46. How do you deal with nurses who seem to not really care as much?
If I can ask to if they could switch nurses, if they can do that, I've asked that. But I had an incident February 20th where I had to report one to the patient experience the next day, because it was too late for me to report her on the 20th. I reported her on February 21st. And I had to keep on following up with it myself. I'm like, y'all not doing enough to follow up with this. That's the problem with Grady. When you have your nurses and you put in a complaint, they don't do enough to reprimand the nurse, because you're not going to call me a junkie.
Yes.
That's something you're not going to do.
So you reported the nurse, and from that, what would you like to have seen done for you?
Okay, once she was reported and they called me and got all the information they needed, there should have been something else done. They should have followed up with me to let me know they did speak to that individual nurse, and this is the steps that are taken. Yeah. That was not done. Yes. I did all the calling back and initial following up, and they apologized to me for it. But I told them, I said, look, and apologize. You cannot apologize for her, because she meant it. She said what she said, and it came flying out her mouth so flawlessly. That wasn't her first time saying it. Yeah. She had no fear of what was going to happen after the fact. It just come flying out her mouth, and when she said it, I'm like, I believe she had been waiting to say something like that, but you gave a speech to the wrong person. Yeah. So I'm really sorry to hear about all that. And unfortunately, it's way too common. I've dealt with it. You've dealt with it, and I spoke to a lot of other people who dealt with it. And hopefully, people watch this video, and nurses watch this video to better understand where people like us are coming from. So I do have a question I'm curious about. If you don't mind me sharing, you're in a roller walker. Yeah. How did you? What is that? Can you explain the story about that? So what I do, I can walk. Okay. I can walk, but I have AVN now as a condition.
What is AVN? Can you?
AVN is avascular necrosis, which is bone death. Yeah. And it's a condition that you get with people with sickle cell, people with diabetes. Can also get it, but this is a condition that came on in my 40s. Okay. In my early 40s. Okay. It was low detected in June of 2020, in my left knee and in my right hip. Now, October 16th of 2020, I had surgery on my left knee, but 9.5 months later, I had to have surgery again on the same knee. Wow. Because it spread and it got worse. Wow. So they just had to go and open my knee completely up and do the surgery, and that was August 6th of 2021. They haven't done anything with my right hip yet, and because of the bone loss, sometimes it's more difficult for me to stand up for long periods of time or do walk. I have days where I flare up and it hurts, and my hip actually on the right side protrude a little bit. Yeah. So instead of me walking and putting all this pressure on my hip, I have to sit in my roller walker and go around the house to do my chores, like dishes or cook or just get something to drink. Yeah,
Wow. So it sounds like avascular necrosis is really tough. I've actually read about that complication a lot, but I've never actually met somebody who has it. So it sounds like that's a whole nother journey in itself.
It is, because when I learned that it's actually considered another pain condition, I was like, I was really just wrapping my head around, okay, I changed my diet and I did it for the better because of the sickle cell.
Yeah.
But because of the sickle cell, I have another pain condition.
Yeah.
And I have to learn how to navigate life now with this. Because like I said, I've had surgery twice on the knee. I have not had anything done to my right hip yet, and they want the surgeon who's looked at it, and I've heard this twice, they actually want the condition to get worse before they step in and do anything.
Wow. Why would they want that?
They said because of my age and the type of surgery it is, because the AVN that I have that's in my right hip is located up in the ball joint, right up in the socket of my hip. So they're saying it's a surgery that's reserved for people older. I'm like, look, I can't help this. I really can't. But I mean, if I was a top performing athlete, or if I had better insurance, we would not have this conversation. Because they're, like I said, top athletes, those young men are way younger than me. And y'all do what it takes. So what? Come on,
it always comes down to a money thing. If you had the paper, they would shut up and just help you.
The quality of life is different. It's different.
And so I was gonna actually ask you about that. How does having AVN or avascular necrosis affect your quality of life, like your daily activities? How has that?
That's the purpose for the roller walker. So I was like, it takes me longer to do just the dishes, cooking. I have to sit down more when I feel I'm in pain a little bit. Sometimes I have to go take medication and let it kick in first, and then come and do whatever it is I have to do. Now when I go and do laundry, I pick a day when my children are off, because I have 3 adult children. Not one of them have sickle cell, thank God.
That's good.
But and I have 6 grandchildren, which one of them does have sickle cell also. But when I'm doing laundry now, I pick a day when one of my adult children off, so they can go with me. So, because I can't lift anything heavy. So, one of my sons, usually do the toting. My daughter usually do the driving. Grocery shopping, the same thing. My son will go with me, or my daughter. So, that just to take, more pressure off what's going on.
Well, that's so beautiful that you have like a supportive care system, because I would imagine going through all of this by yourself is really tough.
It is. I mean, because of course, with that, because I have 2 younger sisters, and I call on them. Only for they'll help me if I call and really need them. I have adult nieces and nephews also, and it's not really much I call on them for. But because I try to stay as independent as I possibly can.
So you seem like you're very strong-willed and tough-minded. But I'm sure sometimes you might have your days when you're feeling out of it. Or maybe you just not feel as mentally as strong. How do you go about dealing with your health mentally and just dealing with the psychological pain of sickle cell?
Okay, so with that, this brings in my faith. Because some people have faith, some people don't. Which is whatever, I'm not here to debate that, but for me, holding on to my faith is in the fact that I want to see more. I want to do more. I want to see my kids do more. I want to see I just want more and want to see more. That will for me to want to be around to see more. That's what that is. And the fact that I had to learn to love me. And when I took the time to myself and learned to love me, my will to live grew stronger.
Good for you.
Now I have my days where I don't want to even be bothered with myself. But you know, some of them days, you know, you just that's just with any human. You know, some days are harder than others. Yes. But you know, I learned to, if I start having negative thoughts, I learned to find something positive and replace the negative thought with the positive thought.
Well, good for you.
So, you know, I had to learn that and still learning and doing.
Yeah, that is awesome. I try to do the same thing too. If I catch myself thinking negatively, I'm like, yeah, you better stop it. That's not going to help you.
Exactly. And you know, that brings on illness too.
Yes, yeah.
The more negative you think, that's the sicker you are.
It affects your reality for sure. And I think a lot of people don't talk about that, because when you start to think a lot of negative thoughts, it can cause a lot of stress in you, and because of that stress, it can really permeate into your sickle cell.
And it triggers pain crisis.
Yes. And people don't know that. Yeah.
And I tell you, because I have a couple of friends, and I have one I stay in contact with. We're in contact with each other on a very regular basis.
That's good.
And I tell her the same thing. I'm like, you know, you have to stay out of that negative space. You know, think of something positive. I don't care what it is, find something positive, because every day is not doom and gloom.
Yes.
And you have to stop thinking. Some people are always thinking and focusing on they gonna die. We're all human beings. That's what we're designed to do. Everybody has a time. Everybody has a time that God is calling us home. Some of us might have a more expedited time than others due to, you know, health conditions. But I don't think about that. I don't dwell on it, because that's something that's guaranteed to everybody.
Yes.
So
and there's no point, because it's out of your control.
It's out of our control.
Yeah, and I don't think it's helping you or serving you. Yeah.
And then looking at the world and how things going, I don't want to be here forever anyway.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I can. Yeah, there's a lot of craziness going on.
Exactly. I don't know if I want to live to the year 3000. No.
I understand. Okay, and so I do have another question, and I wanted to ask you about because you have an accent. And some people are may not be familiar with that. So where are you from? Tell the people where you're from.
Atlanta, Georgia, born and raised.
Okay. Wow. And what was it like growing up with sickle cell in Atlanta?
It was hard, because we didn't find out I had sickle cell until I was 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
And that's because that's when I had my first pain crisis. I was riding a bike. I remember like it happened yesterday. I was riding a bicycle down the hill. And it was in the fall, because I had on a very light windbreaker jacket. And I was riding the bike, and I leaned forward. And when I leaned forward, it just felt like a bolt of lightning just hit my back. It just felt like something hit my spine, and it was so painful. I ended up walking back up the hill with the bike, but I was crying real bad. So my family was trying to figure out what was going on. My mom couldn't figure out. My great-grandmother couldn't figure out. My granddaddy couldn't figure out. So they took me to the hospital. At the time, the hospital I went to was a private hospital called Physicians and Surgeons. And the diagnosing doctor, her name was Sandra Hall. I was in the hospital, and I remember that because, like I said, that was the very first time I felt pain like that.
Wow.
The very first time, and you know, it's been different each time after, because no two pain crises are the same.
Yeah. So,
when the doctor walked back in and told me and my mom what was going on, you know, of course, adults doing what adults do, trying to figure everything out, and that's when it was my father informed them then that he had sickle cell disease also.
Oh, wow.
So my mother never knew that my father had sickle cell. My mother carried the trait, but she did not know that also.
Oh, wow.
So
why won't because usually people figure out that they had sickle cell at the time of their birth. Do you know like why that didn't necessarily happen for you?
Well, I was born in 1976.
Okay.
So testing for sickle cell wasn't prevalent.
Yes.
It wasn't known.
Okay.
And of course my mother didn't know because my father didn't share that information.
Yeah.
So she didn't know to have me tested for that because that's information that my father withheld.
Wow, yeah. So that's interesting if you're growing, because right now there's a lot more awareness about sickle cell and there's a lot more information. But I remember I read that like back then there wasn't as much research and it was kind of taboo. Yeah. So wow, it must have been even like harder.
Yeah, and then you know after that, you know it's like I had to keep it a secret. I felt because people looked at me like I was dirty, like it was a dirty secret.
Yeah.
I didn't have that many flare-ups. Of course, when I got closer to my teenage years, I had a few flare-ups because you know hormones changing and developing and growing and going through a lot of different stuff, going from being a child to adolescent, meaning going from elementary school to middle, then from middle to high, you know, all those changes with that. I remember when I was 13 in high school and I was filling out, my mom was there with me and I was filling out a card, the card you fill out for your PE when you're registering in school, and you're filling out your card for extracurricular activities and all that stuff. So when it got to the part of the card where it's asking about your health, I looked at my mom because I wasn't sure whether I should put on that card, the registration card, for the clinic, you know, use anyway. I wasn't sure if I should reveal that I had sickle cell because I didn't know anybody else that had it at the time. So my mom looked at me, she nodded her head, and so I, you know, put it down on there. And that's when I found out that I couldn't go to the military because one of the things I wanted to do extracurricular was join the ROTC. And the instructor stepped me to the office and stepped me to the side and they told me I had to find another extracurricular activity.
Because they say something about like you're not able to do the required like physical exercise.
And we're a liability.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Okay, so this has been a really good interview, Tonya.
Thank you.
Very, very informative, and I really appreciate that you shared this information because you never know like how your perspective, and you seem like you're very mature and wise for your age. That you never know how like your perspective can inspire somebody or just make them think about their sickle cell in a different way. So I'm happy for that. And before we end the interview, do you have any last words of thoughts or maybe some advice of inspiration to give?
I mean, well, hopefully it's words of inspiration. Anybody that's thinking that you're alone and you're going through things by yourself, you're not alone. All of us at one point probably thought that we're being punished for something that we did. We're not. All of us probably had one thought in mind once upon a time about what would life be like if I wasn't here. It wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be the same. So anybody that's thinking, having thoughts of self-harm, please get help and just talk to somebody. If you have, I'm not trying to be religious for those that may get offended, but if you do believe in a higher calling and a higher power, hold on to that and draw closer to it. Okay. That's it.
That's beautiful. So live with faith, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, hey, it was great speaking with you, and you have a blessed one, Tonya.
You too. Thank you.
Yeah.